All right, I've decided I'm going to read some of experiment 6. The experiment that I did in my last video, that isn't experiment 6. It's a short little experiment. The experiment is something I'm not going to bother with because I already know it works. It's where you I will focus my attention on a row of green beans. I will send those seeds positive vibes and expect them to be influenced by my energy. I already know that works. That's been done multiple times with plants, with seeds. If you say loving, positive things to them, they grow. And if you say negative, awful things to them, they practically die. So that's a thing. One other thing, too. To the people who are responding to my challenge to born-again Christians to engage them in a debate, if you really want to get into a debate with me in YouTube comments, that's not what I want to do. I'll consider it. It's not a productive thing. I'd rather come on your channel or you come on my channel, but I don't have the setup for it. So we probably can't do it anyway. But here's the problem with your arguments. There's been 2 so far. Everything you've said, I've already heard. Okay? I've listened to Dr. D. James Kennedy, who is a laureate. I've listened to him numerous times on the radio. I listened to R.C. Sproul. I've listened to more Christian pastors than I care to think about. Okay? Bill Hybels and all the pastors at Willow Creek, John Ortberg, many on the radio. Used to listen to Christian radio all the time. Hank Hanegraaff, the Bible Answer Man. Heard this stuff all the time trying to justify hell and trying to justify those Old Testament passages. Your arguments are not good. I'm going to be kind here. They're not good. There is no way to justify the actions of the Old Testament God with a loving, perfect, all-knowing, all-powerful God who is love. There is no way to do that. The fact that you're trying to do it, or not, you're not trying. You're claiming that I'm just misunderstanding, which is just, oh my God, it's so. You think I'm projecting? You think I'm projecting. You're projecting your worldview into the text to justify these horrific things that God did. One person actually said, is it wrong for a parent to discipline their child? That's not what the God of the Old Testament did. He didn't discipline them. He killed them. He killed them in horrific ways. He didn't just kill them. He killed them in horrific ways. Have you not read the Old Testament? There is no way to justify the barbaric things that thing did in the Old Testament. And for you to say that that's God, that's the Father of Jesus, you're not being true to the text. You're trying to justify your worldview and read it into the text. And you have no concern with any possibility that you could be wrong. You are absolutely certain that you're right and that I'm just one of these people who just doesn't understand proper biblical interpretation. I have been listening to biblical interpretation since I was 18. Well, maybe 20-something. Maybe in my 20s is when I really started listening. R.C. Sproul, as great as he was, man was brilliant, still fell for the foolishness of Calvinism. Dr. D. James Kennedy, with all of his laureates that he acquired through all of his highly educated mind, believed in stupidity because he can't get past it. Born-again theology is brainwashing. You have a loving God who burns people alive in hell, but loves them while they burn in hell. And you say they chose to go there. That's insane. God offered them. He didn't offer them anything. God did not say to the world, now here world, here's my offer for you. Where does God make that claim? In the Bible, which billions of people never saw. Have no clue what you're even talking about. Billions. Billions right now. You make it like everybody was given this choice, and here's this thing that God put out. He didn't. It's tiring. I should have never made that video. But you know what? You guys can keep making your really bad arguments, and I'll just basically ignore it because, I mean, I'm willing, if there's a way to have a discussion live, let's do it. I need to buy a webcam to do it because I only have my phone, but I can go buy a webcam if I have to. Unbelievable. But anyway, I'm going to read from page 103, Experiment 6, The Superhero Principle, because this is unreal. I said I was done with this book. I really, really like what this book is saying. Born-again Christians ought to listen to it too. I wish I could prove to a born-again Christian that they're brainwashed and deceived, but that's like trying to prove to a Calvinist that they're brainwashed and deceived, or trying to prove to a Jehovah's Witness that they're brainwashed and deceived. You ain't going to succeed at it. All right, listen to this. This is unreal. Your thoughts and consciousness impact matter. Science is proving this now, too. The course of the world is not predetermined by physical laws, ... The mind has the power to affect groups of atoms and even tamper with the odds of atomic behavior. Sir Arthur Stanley Eddington, English mathematician and astrophysicist. The premise. This blew my mind when I read this. Japanese scientist Dr. Masaru Emoto spent 15 years researching the effects of human speech, thoughts, and emotions on physical matter. Dr. Emoto chose one of matter's 4 traditional elements, water, to see how it responds to words, music, prayers, and blessings. Using more than 10,000 samples of water, Emoto and his research assistants spoke to, played music for, and asked monks to recite prayers over the water. Now, the reciting prayers thing is weird because to me, that's not what prayer really is, but okay. They did it, and it worked, amazingly. The samples were then frozen, and the resulting ice crystals were examined under a microscope. In case you're wondering what water has to do with anything, dig this, says Pam. Water is present everywhere, even in the air. And since the human body, and indeed the earth, consist of 70% water, it stands to reason that if words and thoughts impact water on its own, they will also affect larger, more complex systems also made up of water. What Emoto found is that when scientists treated the water kindly by saying such things as "I love you" and "thank you," the resulting water crystals became clear and beautifully formed. This is incredible. This is unreal. So why can't I get this to work? It's so frustrating that I can't get this to work. But when Emoto and his team talked negatively to the water, screaming such snide comments as "I hate you" or "you idiot," the crystals formed dark, ugly holes. When Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel was played, the resulting frozen crystal split in 2. In one photo, he shows how a sample from the dam at Fujiwara Lake, starting out as a dark and amorphous blob, is completely transformed after a priest prays over it for just 1 hour. The ugly crystal turned into a clear, bright, white, hexagonal crystal within a crystal. He also found that prayer could create new types of crystals that had never before been seen. We in the West are not taught about energy and the power of our body-mind. Instead of being trained to tune in to our innate intelligence, we're told, here's a doctor, here's a nurse. When something's wrong, consult with them. Coaches tell us if we're good enough to make the basketball team. Teachers tell us if our art is up to snuff. We're taught to turn over our power to forces outside ourselves. The power of perception. My mind is a bad neighborhood I try not to go into alone, said Anne Lamott, American author. I like that quote. When I was born in February 17, 1956, my father took one look at me, lying there helplessly in my pink bassinet, and announced to my mother that I was the ugliest baby he had ever seen. Needless to say, my mother was devastated. And for me, a minutes-old human being, it was decided that beauty, or lack thereof, was destined to color every moment of my life. My dad's life-changing indictment was prompted by my nose, which was plastered to my face like a roadkill possum. After my mother was in labor for 18 grueling hours, her obstetrician decided to intervene with a pair of cold metal forceps. In the battle between the forceps and me, my nose got flattened. Gradually, the nose bounced back to normal, but my fragile ego remained disfigured. Curious how you had a fragile ego at this point. I'm guessing this is because this was told to you later on in life when you were like 3 or 4 maybe, I'm guessing. I desperately wanted to be beautiful. I wanted to prove to my father that I was acceptable and to make up to my mother for the embarrassment I caused her. I scoured beauty magazines, studying the models like a biologist studied cells. I rolled my hair with orange juice cans and ordered, and on she goes about this. Despite my well-meaning attempts, I remained less than beautiful. No matter what I did, I never could seem to get my looks together. How could I? My very existence centered around my dad's ugly baby statement. It was the first sentence about my life, the proclamation around which my very life revolved. To go against it would dishonor everything I knew, my dad, my mom, myself. Things went from bad to worse. By 6th grade, my eyesight weakened and I was forced to wear a pair of black-horned rimmed glasses. By 9th grade, when I finally convinced Dad to invest in contact lenses, a definite beauty booster, my face immediately broke out in a connect-the-dots puzzle of pimples. All my babysitting money went for Clearasil astringent, blah, 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 blah. And if it wasn't bad enough, my sister, who had the good fortune to escape both the forceps and the ugliness indictment, pointed out that my front teeth were now crooked. The sad thing about all this work and effort is that it was futile. I had no idea that until I changed the deep-seated thoughts about myself, I'd remain ugly. I could have exercised, applied makeup, and rolled my hair into eternity, but as long as my dad's indictment was the thought virus on which I operated, I was destined to be the ugliest baby he'd ever seen. This is mind-boggling to me. Oh, sure, I made temporary progress. I'd clear up my complexion to grow my hair, straighten, blah, blah, blah. You see, my body had no choice but to follow the blueprints my thoughts had given it. So she couldn't overcome this because of her dominant belief. About this time, I discovered self-help books. It was an inevitable meeting. Any college freshman who thinks she closely resembles Frankenstein needs all the self-esteem boosting she can find. I started with Your Erroneous Zones by Dr. Wayne Dyer. I read Barbara Walters' book on how to make conversation. I learned how to win friends and influence people, how to empower myself with positive thinking, and how to think and grow rich. All the reading eventually started to change the way I felt about myself. I actually started finding things I liked. Even things about my looks. I was tall, for one thing, which meant I could more or less eat anything I wanted and not gain weight. Don't know if that's true, but okay. And my thick hair was an asset, and my best friend's mother said I had perfectly shaped eyebrows. Instead of looking for things I disliked, I started concentrating on things I liked. Like magic, my look started improving. As I gave up the limiting thoughts, I began to see my own beauty. The less I chastised that poor little ogre in the mirror, the more she started to change. The less I tried to change myself, the more I changed. So we have to stop trying to change ourselves, but then you've got to do all these things that they tell you to do, which is literally you trying to manifest the things you want. See, I get caught in this little dichotomy of contradictions, if that's even a correct sentence. I'm not even sure. Miraculously, my eyesight returned to normal. Wow. She's simply by believing in herself. I was finally able to throw away the Coke bottle glasses and the contacts. The complexion from hell cleared up, and my teeth, after months of using a retainer, began to match the even teeth of the other members of my family. In fact, the only time I felt grotesquely ugly was when I'd visit my dad and his second wife. Although I didn't realize at the time I was changing my looks during those visits to satisfy my dad's belief about me, or rather what I thought were his beliefs about me. I now know my dad's remark was simply an offhand comment. He meant no harm. But because I didn't know it at the time, I took his ugly baby comment. See, he didn't tell you that he didn't mean it? I took his ugly baby comment to heart and acted it out in rich, vivid detail. Even the poor eyesight, which some might argue is a genetic propensity, was solely my creation. Nobody else in my family ever wore glasses. Everyone else had 20/20 vision and picture-perfect teeth. Anecdotal evidence. Henceforth I whimper no more, postpone no more, need nothing. From this hour I ordain myself loosed of limits and imaginary lines. Walt Whitman, American poet. Sickness is optional. I should probably have my head examined for including this section in the book. You'll notice I've hidden it in the middle of a long chapter near the back. It's not that you haven't heard ideas like this before, that so-and-so's cancer was caused by unresolved anger, or that stress can turn hair white overnight. But what I'm going so far as to say is that we've been led down the garden path by a bloated, greedy medical system that has convinced us that disease is inevitable, because you see, big pharma needs sick people. I've been saying that our whole system wants as many Americans, we'll stick with America here, as many Americans as possible. They can't get everybody, but as many as possible, poor, dumb, and sick. Those three things. The more poor, dumb, and sick people we have, the better, even though they're literally destroying this country by doing that. And now we've put a disgusting human being in the Oval Office. And all you Trump supporters, I defy you to defend this man. But you will, because you people are in a cult. And it's sick. It's really, really sick. But what I'm going so far as to say is that we've been led down the garden path by a greedy medical system that has convinced us that disease is inevitable. I am not knocking doctors, nurses, or medical personnel, 99% of whom are caring, committed, and well-meaning. No, they're just as hoodwinked as we are. I agree. They are. They keep dealing with the symptom, not the cause. The medical community deals with the effect, the symptom, not the cause. We don't want to address the cause. Because if we address the cause, then we'll cure it, and then there won't be any more sick people like if we cure cancer. Then we can't treat cancer anymore if we cure cancer. And add everything else to that list. Prevention? We don't want to prevent people getting sick. We want people to get sick so we can treat them. That's how they make their money. It's so obvious. I don't know why we don't all realize that we are being lied to. And that's just medicine. Don't even talk about politics and religion and oh my God. What I'm suggesting is that the erroneous consciousness of all of us has resulted in major computer glitches. Instead of seeing sickness as a problem, something to correct, we accept it as a fact of life. Yep. We've all agreed to this arbitrary set of rules that says sickness can't be escaped. Illness is natural. Most of us can't even imagine perfect health. Wim Hof hasn't been sick in over 40 years, not even a cold. Nothing. He's in perfect health over 40 years, not one time. Wim Hof. He's figured it out. My health has greatly improved since I started practicing the Wim Hof method, but I don't practice it nearly as much as I should, because I get lazy. Long ago, our minds established this false pattern of perception. Once a mind thinks it can't do some task, like unclog an artery, it informs the brain that it can't do it. Now, Joseph Murphy would totally agree with all of this stuff. This is what he was talking about, which in turn informs the muscles. The virus in our consciousness has limited our ability to utilize our body's great wisdom. But our belief in the inevitability of a degenerating body, now this is where I was just talking about it. I said, why can't we all live forever? Why can't we achieve immortality? Why do we have to grow old and die? And here, I couldn't believe what I'm about to read. But our belief in the inevitability of a degenerating body only seems real because we've believed it to be real for so long. Dr. Alexis Carrel, a French physician and Nobel Prize winner, demonstrated that cells can be kept alive indefinitely. What? I couldn't believe I read that. His research proved there's no reason cells need to regenerate ever. I was like, what am I reading? I can't believe this is in this book. Because I literally just asked this question in one of my videos. The education we all get is that we have no power, that we don't know anything, explains Meir Schneider, a man who cured himself of blindness. A person whose dog I walk, he has very little eyesight left. I keep trying to heal his eyesight with my mind. I think he's going to have to do it. I keep saying he has 20/20 vision. And I've imagined his wife saying, Gary's eyes are fine. Nobody knows how they're fine. I keep imagining this in my mind. Because I want it to happen. And now there's a guy who cured himself of blindness. But it's not true. That we don't know anything. But it's not true. Within each of us is everything we need to know. When he was born in Lviv, Ukraine in 1954, he was cross-eyed and had glaucoma, astigmatism, nystagmus, and several other hard-to-pronounce diseases that affect the eyes. His cataracts were so severe that he was forced to endure 5 major surgeries before he turned 7. Oh, God. The last one broke the lens on his eyeball. And by the time he was in 2nd grade, he was declared legally blind. So much for modern medicine. When Schneider was 17, he met a kid named Isaac with a different message than that of the doctors and surgeons. Isaac, who was a year younger than he was, actually had the gall to tell him, if you want, you can train yourself to see. No one had ever had that kind of faith before. All Schneider had ever heard before this was, you poor, poor blind thing. Meir Schneider's family, like any good, sympathetic family, discouraged him from getting his hopes up. Sure, try the exercises, they said, but don't forget, you're a blind kid. Within a year, as Isaac predicted, Meir began to see. Not a lot at first, but enough to believe that maybe this 16-year-old kid knew more than the doctors who wrote him off as blind and inoperable. Eventually, Schneider gained enough vision to read, walk, run, and even drive. Today, he proudly possesses a California driver's license, and he operates a self-healing center. Maybe I should go work there. Wow. Blind people, he says, become more blind because they aren't expected to see. They're thrown into a category. Furthermore, he can't understand why an optimistic concept sounds so bizarre to most people. When Barbra Streisand was a young girl growing up in Brooklyn, she fell in... That's why I said my name is Barbra Streisand. That was because I just read this. When I said that in the other video. She fell in love with the movies. She wanted nothing more than to be a glamorous movie star. Unfortunately, her widowed mother was dirt poor, and Barbara wasn't exactly Grace Kelly material. Any reasonable career counselor would have encouraged her to pursue a different goal. After all, honey, you have an unconventional nose, and yes, she does. Well, how can I put this politely? You being an actress is like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wanting to be a jockey. But Barbara's intentions were so strong that I believe she manipulated circumstances through the only pathway she could, by manifesting a voice. God damn. By manifesting a voice so powerful that it led to stardom on Broadway and eventually to the movies. Roll your eyes and call me deluded, but here are the facts. No one else in Barbara's family could sing. No one else had any musical talent. I'm going to stop there. This goes on. Matter does not control you. You control matter. Man. Oh, and by the way, science is making all kinds of unbelievable inventions. I'm seeing them on Facebook. in other countries, not in America. I mean, they're doing things that look completely impossible. And I maybe I'll share it at some point, but they're on Facebook. Just countries, scientists, inventions, like, it's like, what? How is this even possible, what they're doing? So I can only imagine where we will be 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. I can only imagine how phenomenal life on this planet will be after we get through this horror show that we're currently living through. And it's not just in America. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. This is wild. So I highly recommend you all get this book and read it if you're not. I'm going to keep reading. I'm on to experiment 7. I'm not going to bother planting seeds and telling them I love them to see if they grow, and telling another group that I hate them to see if they die. I don't need to do it. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in fixing myself. I'm interested in manifesting my dream life. I'm going to focus on that. And if it never works, then that's on me. And I hope you all manifest your dream life. If I didn't, then I don't deserve mine. If I didn't desire that you manifest your dream life, then I don't deserve mine. It's that simple. If I'm rich and ignore the plight of the poor, then I don't deserve any of my wealth. And every rich person who could care less about how many poor people are in this world, and not only not care, but are actually attacking these people and making their lives worse, I can't imagine how anyone can be that disgusting. I can't imagine. But hey, the God of the Old Testament said, you didn't bow down to me, hang them in the sun. Because, a loving parent has to discipline their children. If a loving parent doesn't discipline their children, that would be wrong. You have to discipline your children. Right. So when you bow down to other gods, you hang that kid in the sun until he's dead. Because that's what a loving God does. You can't process this, can you, born again Christians? You can't realize this because it destroys your worldview. So you will jump through hoops to say, I'm projecting, I'm doing, making up, creating a God in my own mind, the schizophrenic psychopath God that you're worshiping, and are justifying his behavior as saying that you don't understand. Who am I to question God? I am no one to question God, but I'll question the psychopath in that Old Testament. Now, there's a good God in that Old Testament too. I read a lot of good passages. My mercy endures forever. Lots of good passages in the Old Testament. There's like 600 positive, wonderful verses in the Bible. But all of those negative verses, if you take those literally and you say God is love, you're brain dead. You're nuts. If you take those passages as symbolic or metaphorical or spiritual in some way, and they don't mean what they literally say, that's a possibility that I can conceive of. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying I'm the one projecting when literally that's what you're doing. You're doing it. And I've heard all of this before. You can't say anything that I haven't heard. I'm sorry, you can't. I've listened to William Lane Craig debate, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, Lawrence Krauss. I've listened to at least 3 of his debates. Actually, I've probably listened to him debate people 5, 6 times, justifying the horrific crap in the Old Testament. And Lawrence Krauss called him out so good, and it didn't faze William Lane Craig one bit. He said, "Oh, it's okay that God killed them because they went to heaven." The children, all the children that he killed in the Old Testament, well, they went to heaven, so it's okay. Oh, well, then, William, why don't we just kill all the children on the planet? Oh, that'd be horrible. You can't do that. Well, they'd all go to heaven. Isn't the goal to go to heaven when we die? You just said if God killed the children, they went to heaven. Then by that logic, we should kill children. Do you know there's a man who killed his entire family And he told the minister of his church that he did that because he knows they're in heaven now. That's why he killed them. He goes, if I let them live, they would have become condemned to hell unless they got saved by believing in Jesus. So I killed them, guaranteeing they go to heaven. And when I said that to born again Christians, they said, oh, that's horrible. Murder is wrong. I said, but you just said murdering children would send them to heaven. How could that possibly be wrong? You're guaranteeing them salvation. You still can't process this? You still can't think A plus B, A equals B, B equals C, so A equals C? You can't do this simple process? This is not complex. Murdering children sends them to heaven? Then murdering children is the best thing you could do for a child. It guarantees them eternal life in paradise. Otherwise, they will become condemned to go to hell unless they believe in Jesus, and that's not even 50-50. You're insane to let children live, and they're going to become condemned to hell. If that's what you believe, that's a stupid belief system. The Calvinist mocks it. The Calvinist laughs at that ridiculous belief. See, the Calvinists are right about a lot of things, except for their insanity of Calvinism. I don't know how you guys can't see how dumb your beliefs are, how horrible your beliefs are, and that you will jump through hoops to justify these ridiculous beliefs and this ridiculous God that you claim is a perfect, loving God. And he's literally the opposite of that. He makes Hitler look like a nun. The God of the Old Testament, if you just take the horrific passages, makes Hitler look like a nun. And you sit there and justify this stuff and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh my God, it's so sad to hear people make these arguments to justify their beliefs. Anything to justify your belief. Because God forbid your worldview get crushed. Because then what will you do if your worldview gets crushed? Can't crush my worldview. My worldview is real simple, guys. Truth is more important than my beliefs. All you born-again Christians, try it. Say truth is more important than my beliefs. Therefore, if I'm wrong, I want to know. You can't do it. You won't do it because your beliefs are sacred to you. Because you are certain you're going to go to heaven when you die because you believed in Jesus. It's sad. Take care, y'all. Maybe I'll come on with more Pam Grout because this book is really good.